computer
Yeah.
vision, VR maybe?
The day just keeps getting better and better, and I'm definitely excited to be hosting our next speaker, Milecia McGregor, and she's joining us from Oklahoma, and she's here to talk to us about VR projects with Brain.js. So we're going to be looking at integrating JavaScript, VR, and AI, and all these fun things. I think we are waiting for her video feed, but
Have you ever done anything with AI in JavaScript, Alicia?
and I haven't done anything in JavaScript in a while.
Oh, so JavaScript in general. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's you know, 80% of projects right now tend to involve ingestion, and that's a lot of where my time is spent. And, I do get to talk a lot to people about, IoT and where they're putting their data. And, but it's so exciting
Can you all
how
see me?
they're enabling everyone to, like, we're talking about hardware getting smaller, right? So just the capabilities, and then the enhancement in the capabilities and how quickly it's happening, and on top of that, the importance that people are placing on bias and ethics is just phenomenal. And we were talking about this in another session, how some of these bias questions, they come up and we make improvements against them so quickly, that everybody's, and you don't get that type of responsiveness and improvements unless everybody thinks it's an issue, right? So we have Milecia here on the line with us now.
Welcome.
Thank you
Video
for
connection
joining.
is working, so
Okay.
welcome to the show. And we were just discussing that we haven't seen a lot of JavaScript stuff in the AI scene. We're mostly building models in C++ and Python. Actually, I do a lot of Python and almost no C++ at all. So I guess thanks to the Moore's law, we have enough compute power to run JavaScript in a VR device and do something interesting with AI. So I'm curious what that looks like. But first, I've talked to you before the show a few days ago, and we had a lovely discussion about AI. What sort of work do you do during the day?
So I work on just different React apps and some CI/CD pipeline tools, and I'm actually just kind of all over the place.
So you're sort of the profile, a regular developer that sort of ran into the whole AI thing. Is that correct?
Actually, I have my master's in mechanical and aerospace engineering, so I did some research with like robotics and AI. I was able to build an autonomous golf cart, so that's where I got into AI the first time.
Oh, Alicia, we made a big mistake. We should have asked her about an automated golf cart. I mean, that's so much more interesting, but I guess we're lucky enough to have you for the VR stuff.
Christmas. If you could help me out with a puppy.
With a puppy.
Yeah, we have a global AI puppy these days. I adopted it somehow remotely over the internet. I don't know what happened. I made a mistake somewhere. So we're going to talk a little bit about VR. So you mentioned React VR. Can you explain a little bit how that works actually? How would I actually build a VR application in React?
So the good thing is you don't actually need React to build a VR app. So there's a few different JavaScript libraries. Like my favorite is A-Frame, and it makes it super easy to make a VR app with just some HTML and assets and a little bit of JavaScript.
Cool.
So how did you get started?
Honestly, with the VR app, I just kind of wanted to make a VR app. So I started looking around and reading different articles and trying to find tools. And of course, there were a lot of them in Python and C# and stuff like that, but I really, really like JavaScript. So I wanted to find a way to bring VR to JavaScript, and somebody already did it for me. So using A-Frame made it really easy to just get started and up and running just in a browser.
Wow. VR applications in the browser, how does that combine with the VR glasses that we just showed at the beginning of the episode, the Oculus Quest? Can it run on there, or how does that work, actually, the whole process?
So they can run on like a HoloLens or an Oculus Rift or something like that. It's just you have to export them in that specific format.
Okay, so you're basically building this VR application in your browser on your computer, and then you can package it up and export it to the VR device of your choice. And I guess most popular ones are supported by the product.
I know for sure the Oculus Rift is supported. I think the thing that Samsung makes it supported, I forget what it's called, but the main popular devices are supported by A-Frame.
Oh, cool. So, and then there's the AI component. We've seen from Satya at the beginning of this episode that there's a lot of stuff you can do with computer vision these days. Actually, they've been working on it for 20 years. How does that combine with VR in this case? What sort of thing have you built using AI in VR?
So in this case, it's more of like how a user interacts with the VR world. So things move around according to their interactions. Basically, let's say we're trying to find objects in a game or just in a world or whatever. Depending on how fast or how well people are finding things, we can move the objects around so that they'll stay interested in the world, and it'll increase and decrease the difficulty as they need it so they don't just quit and leave.
That sounds interesting. Cool. And what sort of tool are you using to build this in your application?
So this is all of the code is written in just VS Code, and yeah, it's all just JavaScript. It's like building a really big, complicated web app.
Okay. Any special libraries you use for AI applications in VR?
Brain.js is my personal favorite just because it's super easy to get started with. Like, if you can work with arrays, objects, and arrays of objects, you can do AI in JavaScript. That's
That
how
sounds
easy
exactly
Brain
like
makes
my
it.
kind of AI. Large arrays of numbers. That's that. Now we're talking. Now I get it. I mean, I've done JavaScript in the past for a few years, and it's the language is so weird. Actually, in the training that I followed around JavaScript, they teach me all these conversions rather than a type system because it should have one. I don't know about it, but it sounds interesting. Arrays of objects, basically numbers. And can you show us what the Brain.js, how it works, what it looks like?
Sure. Let me share my screen real quick. Hopefully that won't be too hard of a thing to do.
Otherwise, our AI application can find it. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so if you're familiar with just any web apps in JavaScript, this is a Node.js app. So we have some basic stuff in here, like we're importing our packages and setting up a little Express app and just some, regular web app stuff there. But this is where it actually gets interesting. So this is just a sample of the training data we're going to use for the neural network, because of course you can use neural networks in JavaScript now. But basically you can see it's just this array with these different objects in them. And for this particular application, we look at the user's position in the world. So their X, Y, and Z positions, they're all in meters, which I'm super happy about. But
so we do have a request if we could possibly zoom a little bit into the code. And
yeah, much better.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
No problem. But yeah, so we get the user's location, we figure out if they found an item or not, and we look at how many steps they've taken. So those are just like some of the features we're looking at to start with. And then just some of our, expected output data. We want to know, based on their location, if they found something and how many steps they've taken in the world, if they'll actually finish the task that we've given them. And pretty much based on that, we have our training input data and our training output data, and we go ahead and combine that in just one giant array. Then the fun part is here. So this is a neural network, just this one line of code. It has 3 hidden layers in it, and that is the entire neural network right there. That's why I like JavaScript so much, because they made it super, super simple, super easy. But after we have our neural net set up, then we go ahead and train it with that data set that we went through earlier, and it gives us our model. So you can look at some of the stats on it. Let me see if that's still here from when I started it. Yeah, so you can look at some of the stats on the model after it's been trained. That error's, I don't know how I feel about that error, but that's what it is. That's how many iterations it took to get to a decent model. And that last one, the will finish, that's just a prediction on some new data we have that tells us if the user or the player will actually finish the task we've given them. But really, all it comes down to is this line of code is our trained model. So we've trained it, we know all of the things about it. And this line was just to give an example of what it looks like when you run the model with this new data it hasn't seen before. And then the rest of it is really just like how that data gets used in the application itself. And if you were curious about what the VR app looks like, this is it. So this is all just in the browser. You can wander around. I wonder if I can still find one of the objects in here. So basically, you can just walk around, look for the stuff that was on the list, and based on how long it takes you to find things, the different objects in the world will move around to try to accommodate like the user's skill level. Maybe it'll help them like find things faster, or it'll slow them down if they're getting through stuff too fast. But you find an object, you click on it, and it goes back to like the home base position. So this one in particular is just a really big search and find, because I like those kind of games and stuff. But the point of adding the AI in here was to really make the game custom to the user so that it matches their skill level. If they're going through the game really, really fast, we want to slow them down so they actually get to experience the virtual reality world. And if they're having some problems finding things, we want to encourage them to keep going so that they will eventually finish and they won't just abandon the world forever.
Sounds really cool. And so I saw some interesting pieces of code in there. Maybe if we can go back to your editor. So in here, there's a one-liner to actually construct a neural network. And I'm interested in, so you specify hidden layers. What else can I specify actually in this function, in this constructor for the neural network?
So with the neural network in particular, it's really just the hidden layers. Like, I think there are a few other options. Let me see if I can just get the magic code button. So yeah, we can add an activation node, some threshold stuff, and if we want to make this a leaky ReLU alpha. But these are the only other things you can add to that neural network. At least for now. I know that they're working on adding a lot more features. Like One thing Brain.js is working on adding are convolutional neural networks, which will be really cool to have in JavaScript.
Yeah, I can imagine that this works for the most basic scenarios. This is basically just a feed-forward network. So how new is Brain.js actually at the moment?
Brain.js has been around for at least a few years now. I think there was a point the original creator passed it off to the current maintainer, but it's been around for at least 2 or 3 years.
Okay, so it's not completely new. It's just that it looks like it's pretty limited in functionality right now. So what other options do I have if I want to build neural networks in JavaScript or use them for that matter?
Let's see, for building neural networks in JavaScript, recently I found out that there are a few like JavaScript equivalents to some of the Python libraries. Like there's a NumJS library instead of NumPy. There's the Keras.js. So that one is really powerful. It's almost as powerful as the Python version of it, but it's still relatively new in JavaScript, the whole machine learning AI thing. So there's still a lot of development left.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's actually the first time that I've seen an implementation of machine learning algorithm in JavaScript, and it looks really interesting. I guess if you're coming from a background of web development and doing CSS, HTML, those kind of things, this would make more sense to you instead of building a neural network in Python, where you have a lot more options to think about. I guess that makes it really interesting for people to get started with this.
Yeah, one thing that is really cool about the JavaScript implementations is that they do strip out a lot of the background knowledge you need. So you don't have to know about the statistical analysis that goes behind all the calculations. You don't have to worry as much about cleaning data or making sure it's in a certain form. As long as you can put it in an array of objects, this will handle it.
Sounds cool. And what about performance? How fast would you say this is?
That is one thing that it does lack a little bit. It is kind of slow. Like so far, I haven't used any of the JavaScript machine learning libraries in production just because the performance on them, it isn't the greatest when you're feeding them new data at the same time that they're making predictions.
Yeah, exactly. So if people want to try this out, where can they learn more about this? Do you have a code repository where people, for example, can download this stuff?
Oh yeah. I have a GitHub for this in particular. So I guess I can just show you the link. If you go to my user at footcoder, you can go in here to It's Hot. That's the name of the game. But so yeah, this is where you can go to just play with this VR app.
Oh, cool.
It looked pretty green to me, but we were discussing earlier that trees make people happy. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think this game will make me a happy person as long as there's enough green in there. And I guess if people want to try this out, they can certainly add more objects to find, more tricks with neural networks, I guess, to make this even more interesting.
They'd have to add a beach.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we need a beach in there. Yeah.
But if you were interested in just making your own VR app, this is all of the code that makes up that entire world. Like, I think it's not even 100 lines of code to make this whole VR world and include the AI in it.
So, do you have any other plans for integrating AI in a VR project?
Oh yeah. So one of the things that I'm gonna try
I saw your smile pop up, and that was so quick. It was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this because I haven't seen a lot of AI in VR yet, and I'm a little bit surprised. But kind of where
we'll connect you with some people, and we'll get that accelerated, right?
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, if people are interested in this sort of stuff, they should definitely check your website. There should be a GitHub repo attached to it, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so what we'll do is we will actually share your link as a resource to this episode.
Nice.
People may not know this yet, but you can watch this whole stream back after we are done. You can actually rewind, I believe, in the stream. Um, but after we are done with the show, we will cut up all the videos that we've made, all the sections of the show, and we will have extra links and resources underneath that, so people can find your website and give this a shot. I mean, it sounds really interesting trying to use JavaScript to run AI models, for that matter. I guess from your story that if people want to get started, this is a great place. If they want something more, they should probably try the Curious.js, I think.
I think so. That one has a little bit more, I want to say maybe a little bit more depth to it. So it does work a lot like the Python version of it. And that'll give you those CNNs that I've been really, really waiting for.
Cool. So once you have those, you should definitely come back and show us the upgraded game with beaches, more trees, more grass, and a CNN in there. I'm excited.
Me too.
We'll see you in February.
Yeah, because
maybe
another project I'm working on is an air guitar. So I have these I have EEG and EMG sensors that I wrap around my head and put on my arms. And based on the notes that you think about and the way that you move your fingers, it translates that into guitar sounds. So I'm super excited about that one.
Oh, wow. That sounds
Is
really
that going to
cool.
be ready for February, do you think?
Actually, yeah, I think that one should be ready by February.
I feel like putting up a AI for music show. I don't know
Yes.
how that will work out, but that sounds like a really awesome idea for the community.
AI's
So
got talent.
if people are interested in that, let us know. We could definitely work something out.
Nice.
So, and with that, I would like to thank you very much for your time, and for joining us, for that matter. So if people have more questions to you, they can probably ask them in the live chat. Feel free to join that one. Also, if you have questions for us, and you happen to have a very good and a very fun question for us, you can get a chance at winning a Oculus Quest 2 device. We'll announce a winner at the end of the show. And also important to note that if you're not much of a photo person,
If you're a little camera shy, you can still ask a question.
Exactly. That was the correct order. The photo is for the Oculus Quest because that's visual, and the other thing is for writing us a great question. So feel free to ask us questions and send us your pictures of you watching the Global AI show live. So thank you very much again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
With that, I would like to invite Elizabeth to join us.